Hey, welcome to Scare Score. So, today we're going to be talking about Sinister, released in 2012. This is personally one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and I kid you not, I genuinely was not able to sleep the first time I saw this back in 2013-14, and every subsequent time I saw it, it was still fucking terrifying. So I thought, what better way to start ranking horror movies than with one of the scariest horror movies I have ever seen? Let's get started. I'll be scoring this movie in 4 different areas. Atmosphere, which is going to be worth 35%, then killer / evil force depending on the movie, which is also worth 35%, followed by kills, which consists of 20% of the final score, and then finally general enjoyment, because yeah, even if it's horror, I think enjoying it is pretty important. And if you do math, that's gonna be the 10%, and all this adds up to a final scare score. This movie follows one-hit wonder Ellison, a true crime book writer who once helped solve a crime that police overlooked, but sadly hasn't been very helpful since then. So he moves around a lot and landed in Chatford, Pennsylvania, with his family consisting of Tracy, his wife, his older son Trevor, and the young daughter Ashley. Being the big brain writer that he is, he decides to move into a house where a murder of a whole family took place. We quickly find out through Super 8 snuff films that there have been a bunch of other murders in different places of the country, and they're all related. How? Through an ancient Babylonian deity called Mr. Boogie, or more creepy, Bagul. This creepy fucker, I guess, possesses little kids and gets them to kill families, and then he takes them with him. How does he do this? Through images, or in this more modern era, film. So after a bit of haunting, Ellison and his fam bam move out and of course get killed. End of movie. It'll take you a whole hour and 50 minutes to watch this movie, but it's worth it. The soundtrack and design in this movie is, in my opinion, fantastic. The overall score feels spooky and chill-inducing by itself, which is brought to us by Christopher Young. He also took part in the music of The Grudge, Drag Me to Hell, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and many others. But what really stands out in the score is in the snuff films. Honestly, it's so unsettling, and it just makes your ass tingle whenever you hear it. Like, listen to this shit, man. Now, this score wasn't actually composed by Young, rather Cargill looked through the internet and just ended up buying the music because it was so fucking eerie and it fit the mood perfectly, and he couldn't have picked better. Aside from just the score, the sound design in general is entertaining. The creaking of the wood while Ellison walks around at night is kinda standard, and at times it doesn't make that much sense, like, considering half the scares are his kids, like, is it them? How fast are his kids? Anyways, they have some real ASMR-ish shots. Which then is contrasted by... In general, the cinematography is also nice. They have some cool one-shot takes and the dark colors at night times, which duh, but again, the center of attention here is in the snuff films. These were actually recorded on Super 8 film, which is a camera from 1965 used mainly for home movies. Thanks to this, the murder-tastic films have this legit old-school vibe and grainy look, not just emulated with a modern-day camera, which can sometimes look a bit funky, but seriously, these tapes are just fucked. They seem so realistic, like if a friend sent that to me without me knowing it's from a movie, he wouldn't be my friend anymore. Honestly, it seems like something the directors could have picked out of the dark web. Once again, these films were mainly thanks to Cargill, who after proposing the snuff film idea to Scott Derrickson, the director and other writer, got sent home to come up with a huge list of the most messed up ways he could think of on how to kill someone. He came up with a list of 35 deaths, and the ones in the movie were the top contenders. Also, there's some dope scenes where Ellison is looking at the films for the first time, and just the cinematography is super cool. Particularly that showing the audience the tape through his reflection, which not only gives us his reaction, but also a nice little throat slash. The acting is also fantastic. The dialogue, well, it's good. I've been watching a bunch of 80s slashers and I love them. Don't get me wrong, it's my favorite genre, but the dialogue and acting isn't necessarily something that, stands out. Well, it does stand out, just not in a good way.
Debbie! Chili's dead! Oh my god! Oh my god!
So, entering this movie that has a natural and realistic and just flowing language and talking was just a nice little surprise and honestly relief. It's great. I love the conflictive scenes between Ellison and Tracy.
I want to know why you're different.
I'm different because I've never been onto something this big before. Do you remember how it was when I was riding Kentucky? Do you remember that?
I remember.
Well, this is much bigger than that. Much!
which just adds this extra depth to the character of Ethan Hawke, which I'll go to in more detail in a bit. It's also a nice plus that the movie knows when to shut the fuck up and cut off all dialogue and just let the tension build up naturally. Add to all this an incredibly somber and depressing tone right from the start. You have this one-hit wonder crime writer who's clearly put his family and wife through a bunch of shit, and the movie lets you know this right from the start in a pretty direct manner. And then the fact that this desperate idiot literally moves into a murder house.
Does she know whose house this is? Was?
I'm not sure you can get darker. I mean, you can, but you get it. On top of all this, the snuff films, which, if you guys don't know, is like a video where someone actually dies, just dark and eerie, like barbecue party title Super 8 film, and it's just a family burning alive. Talk about dark humor, or should I say burnt humor. No? Okay. Now, I want to take a bit to talk about Ellison, played by Ethan Hawke. I genuinely enjoyed the frustrated, washed-up crime writer that has continuously failed. He is incredibly desperate and just yearns to achieve fame like he did with that one book. This right here is one of the main things that adds to the horror aspect of the film, his ambition, his obsessive nature, to the point where he literally brings a demon into his own family. They do a great job portraying his despair and his need to reach that level again, like when he decides to not contact the cops even though he has films of so many people getting murdered. Like, what the fuck, man? He literally just risks his whole ass family and relation. He's a fantastic character, and even though that's a dumb choice, they do make a good job in not making him seem stupid. His actions are somewhat justified. Should he have left the house or contacted the police the moment he found the films? Probably, but he did leave the house, which isn't something we can say about a lot of horror movie characters.
We have to leave now.
Literally just yeets out in the middle of the night, which does end up being his demise, sadly. In line with this, Ethan says in the AMC Movie Talk interview something that I hadn't really picked up on, but it just makes so much fucking sense.
If it were just generic cardboard cutouts chased by a shark and it was all about the shark, I mean, that's the mistake people usually make, is they make the movie all about the demon.
In the end, the movie centers around him. Not the kids, not Bagul. They are part of the movie, but the fear comes from Ellison. On top of this, in the same interview, Scott Derrickson mentions how the movie doesn't center around one type of horror, which sometimes horror movies can fall into this category, where it's just jump scares or just kills which evoke the fear, nor is it purely psychological. But I have to say, some of the scares are kinda cheap. With all this in mind, I'm giving the spookily eerie, somber, dark atmosphere a 10 out of 10. Babylonian deity, eater of children, harasser of families, creepy looking dude, Bagul. His background story is okay. I don't fully understand how he would move around back then, like in stone. I don't know. Anyways, nowadays the movie is also like, why Super 8 film? Does he know it's scarier? It seems like fucking Google would be around 10 times easier, but I guess it's not that creepy that way. Overall, Bagul is one spooky motherfucker. His twisted appearance and hiding in the tapes is so blood-curdling, so when we get to see him physically, it kinda loses a bit of the scare factor. He just acquires this more human-like form, and the magic kinda disappears. Not that the makeup is bad, it's fantastic, but you get it. I feel like they didn't have to necessarily show him directly, and you know what really did bother me? That green roofy ass ooze that he emits, I didn't like. Way too fake and mystical for what the character is himself, plus it just looks so fake, to be honest, just wonky and out of character. To be fair, the whole idea and concept of this character is dope. It's like The Ring, but different and appalling. Also a nice plus is the fact that he doesn't do the dirty work. Adding this creative and messed up way to do the killings, it wouldn't be half as creepy if it was him killing the families in comparison to a little kid.
I like that you made the movies longer. They're better this way.
In that same line, this movie reminded me so much to The Ring, so it wasn't really a surprise to find out that Robert Cargill got the idea for the script after a nightmare when he saw The Ring. Story goes that he watched The Ring, went home, took a nap, as you do, and in that nap, he dreamt that he went to his attic, where he found a box of movies that depicted various hideous, gruesome murders. Fun. I wonder what Freud would have to say about him. As I mentioned previously, it's also a nice, fresh take that Bagul isn't necessarily the centerpiece of the movie. It's Ellison. The deity is part of the horror. The scares and movie and fear center around a despaired writer, and this is something that I honestly love. Something. Okay, now, there's this weird thing that happens which I'm conflicted by. We can clearly see in the original films that Ellison watches that there are elements that are added once he watches them later. I mean, look. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I thought this happened way more often, but oh well. We can see when Ellison watches family hanging out for the second time, Bagul in the background. They show it really clearly. But if we look at when he watched it for the first time or when they show it at the start of the movie, there's 100% no creepy fucker hiding in that exact spot. Now, in Barbecue Party, when he edits on his computer, we can make out Bagul very clearly in the back of the garage. When he saw the clip for the first time in that exact location, we kinda make out a body of Bagul, but not really. Definitely not as clear as we can in the second time. I even tried messing around with the settings, but this is as close as we get. Is this a spoof? I doubt it. It's a little too elaborate, and I think that this is simply the doing of Bagul. Considering how he haunts Ellison and is attempting to drive him out of the house to kill him and his family, I like to believe that he slowly added mystically more elements to the Super 8 films, revealing himself and clues more consistently as the movie progresses, which is a small detail that I enjoy even more, because it shows this more menacing and haunting aspect to Bagul. With all this, he scores a total of 9 out of 10. The kills, well, I've spoken a bunch of the snuff Super 8 films. They're dope, they're realistic, they're super goddamn terrifying and petrifying, downright savage. Like, the titles of the movies are a fun addition, a little absurd at times, but oh well. Honestly, watching them was one of the most spine-chilling aspects of the movie. It's also interesting to watch this found footage style that isn't necessarily found footage, but the kills themselves, I mean, they're more than anything just dark and somber. Watching a little kid, usually known for their innocence and the amount of love that parents have towards them, and then them just killing the families. Like, not, hey, I'm gonna poison you, I'm gonna fucking run you over with the world's strongest and most well-built lawnmower on the universe. Impactfully brutal in general, particularly the final one, because damn, a little kid just axing your family to death while they're awake? Yeah, 9.5 out of 10 on kills. I love this movie, for 95% of it. There are certain moments that just felt kinda cheap and removed from the movie, like some jump scares, the last one, the kid yelling, particularly because they can be seen from a mile away. Just daytime all chill, nighttime spooks, every time. Now, sometimes they're highly predictable, which takes away from the movie, but other times, even though predictable, they'll still get you, and they made me jump out of my seat. Other than this, what's most scary about the film is just the idea, and honestly, the acting of Ethan Hawke is just so fucking good. He literally creates the character and makes the whole thing realistic, relatable, and adds an extra layer to the movie that I feel like a lot of other horror movies miss the mark on. I mean, how's a movie gonna be scary if it's completely unbelievable? If you had this immense relatable character depth without going out of the way, it's just great. This all made the movie immensely enjoyable and personally one of my favorites, so it gets 9.5 out of 10 on general enjoyment. Was that a surprise when I read that a study deemed this movie the scariest one? Not really. So, quick update, Broadband Choices literally 2 days ago uploaded a new study in 2021 on the scariest movies where Sinister got dethroned, but the stats are basically the same, so doesn't matter. Now, I've tried to look into the intricacies in finding an actual scientific paper of this study, but no success. So is it a study? I wouldn't call it that, but still. They measured the resting BPM of people, then their BPM while they're watching multiple movies, and this one had the highest variability, Sinister. Which, in this case, I agree. The other rankings, yeah, I'm good. Don't fucking tell me Scream is the 20th scariest horror movie out there. Like, get the fuck out of here. No. Staying true to this study, my heart rate throughout the movie had an average of 81, a maximum of 94, because of that, and a minimum of 72, which oddly is kinda-ish in line with the results of the study. As a small recap, the movie got a 10 out of 10 on atmosphere, 9 out of 10 on killer, 9.5 out of 10 on kills, and finally 9.5 out of 10 on general enjoyment. It would have gotten a perfect score on most things if it wasn't for these really nitpicky things that just don't allow me to score this a 10 out of 10. So, how scary is it? It gets a whopping final score of 9.5, landing right in the middle of shit your pants, you're having nightmares. As I've said, this is without a doubt one of the scariest movies I have seen. At times it does fall into horror movie cliches, but this doesn't ruin the experience. This has to be one of my favorite horror movies, like I've said 20 times. Not only is it enjoyable, but it's also incredibly scary, which isn't something easily found. If you guys want to seriously shit your pants and possibly have trouble sleeping depending on your age, then watch Sinister. If you enjoyed the content and want to see more, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. If there are any requests as to what movies you'd like to see in the future, make sure to drop it in the comments and I'll take a look. Thanks for tuning in to Scare Score.